You are tuned into Hoppe Hour.
What's up? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, and we have a very special guest on the phone line. You may have heard him in such bands as Story of the Year, as Greek Fire, and Goldfinger, and he is the executive producer of the Rizzuto Show on 105.7 The Point in St. Louis. Moon is on Hoppe Hour. What's up, man?
Oh, nothing much. I very much appreciate you having me today, man. It's a good day to be alive.
Hell yeah, man. I listen to you guys every morning, and I feel like a lot of shows at times take advantage of the fact that they're on air. But what I love about your show that you do with Rizzuto and the gang is you guys seem like you appreciate every second you're on The Point.
Oh, dude, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, the old adage is like anybody with a voice can replace you or whatever. It's kind of burned into you know, our minds, I suppose. But honestly, the biggest difference, I think, and I think our listeners really pick up on this because you can't fake your way through radio without your listeners being able to call you on it. I think the biggest difference is that our show actually likes each other. All four of us are friends. You know what I'm saying? And even when there's tension or we're fighting or whatever, we feel pretty fortunate to be legitimate friends working together and on air together. You know what I'm saying?
What's an example of the biggest fight you guys got into? Was it the one last month with Patrico and Rizzuto? Was that one that's pretty bad, or have there been worse fights?
Oh, man. I remember which one you're speaking of. So
it was about the beer race. It was when he didn't finish the race.
Yeah, well, he had he was affected by somebody that was commenting on social media or something, and Riz kind of laid into him, and then he kind of laid back. And even off air when we went on the break, that was a legitimate big giant sort of rift that happened for a moment. But I don't know if that's the biggest one because, I mean, again, you know, I can compare this to being in bands. I've toured for, 15 years or whatever full time. And when you're in a bus, a metal tube or an airplane or hotels traveling with four other dudes or 6 or 7 other guys, depending on your crew, you really are kind of married to those guys at the time. And it gets intense because you are with each other so much and so many things have to go on. That's what our show is, because we're not just on air 6 to 10 and then we go home like a lot of people think, or even a lot of radio shows do. We're there, 8 to 10 hours, plus we're constantly on the phone and working together off hours, if you will, and on the weekends and all that kind of stuff. So there's been a lot of disagreements and kind of like tension and all that. But because there is a professional respect and a real life friendship respect there, none of those fights really kind of last very long or mean too much. So they're kind of hard to remember. So picking out the biggest one, I don't know, man. That would be difficult. But I will say that was probably the biggest and most tense one that was in recent memory, and that was awesome. Jeff and I loved it. We just sat back and kind of watched it happen.
Would you say you're the calm and laid back guy that makes everyone sort of happy? Because it seems like you're the one that sort of brings everyone back together during all the tension, Oh,
it does. I don't know. I've heard that a few times, but all of us have a pretty cool head in certain areas and certain social responses, and all of us have that emergency, kill button in different places as well. So I don't know. I mean, if that's how it's perceived, then perhaps I am more of the cool-headed one. But I don't know, man. I get pretty intense and pretty riled up about things that the other guys don't even care about. So it probably just depends on the day, man. I don't know. It just depends on the day. I think it's a really good quartet of personalities, honestly. All of us are so very, very different. We care about such different things. Our passions lie in completely different parts of this world. And I think that complements the show in ways that people probably don't recognize or can maybe put a finger on. But I honestly, I think that's probably one of the secrets to the show's success, is that we are all so very different, but enjoy the same things as far as making good radio.
Now, what I like about your show, too, is you guys know how to find good content and prep on a slow news day, and you guys know how to fill 4 hours of good content in the morning. What is the key to finding things to talk about when there's not much going on for that day?
Oh, that's a great question as far as radio goes, and I will use a Rizzuto Show answer, or actually a Scott Rizzuto answer. The Rizzuto answer to that, and it is 100% true, is being over-prepared, overly prepared. And that man, as far as the showrunner goes and the captain of the ship, is the most overly prepared person I have ever met, especially in radio. Most radio guys, after they kind of have a cush job for a minute, seem underprepared, and they kind of come in and have to wing on a slow news day. They're winging an hour or two here or there. We can do that with the best of them, with the talent and the skill that Riz has and has sort of rubbed off on the rest of us. But I'm telling you, the secret ingredient, or the main ingredient, is just being overly prepared. If there's a day that you told us in 60 seconds we had to be on the radio, there is a cabinet, and I mean like a dresser filled with information that's only just within the few months as far as news goes and content that we've created and things we've come up with and ideas that we have fleshed out and all that. That is all ready to go already. So not only are we covering each day's news events and all the stuff that's very, very topical that's happening minute to minute to minute, but we have a dresser filled with stuff in our back pocket, and that's all because of the preparation and just the general mentality that Rizzuto has.
Do you think Riz ever takes a break from his show, or is he one of the guys where he's always thinking about the next big thing for his morning show? I don't think any of us are trying to think of the next best thing. I know that is a way to go about entertainment. Being a musician and a songwriter and all that kind of stuff, I know certain songwriters that are always trying to think of the next phenomenon. And, this guy's a phenomenon, so I'm going to copy his approach or whatever and write a single like that. And I think a lot of radio guys approach it as what's the next best thing? What's the next video that's going to go viral for me or whatever? I think another component to our success is we don't think like that. We're just constantly thinking, and I know that Riz is constantly just thinking about the show in a continual fashion, a continual context fashion, a continual content fashion. So he's not really so concerned about what's the next giant breakout moment that's going to happen on the show. He's just worried about what's the next thing that I can do that's going to make the best radio. And that's a moment-to-moment thing that he does not get away from. I think he can find some peace here and there if he's on a family vacation, but even during the family vacation, I think he's 100% thinking about something about the show, whether it's some of the mechanics of it or what's happening on his family vacation, as far as details go, that he is willing to share or isn't willing to share. That's going to be good for the air on Monday, and I think he appreciates my understanding of that. I have a very, very difficult time disconnecting myself from any sort of art that I'm doing, whether it's performing with a band that's hired me, or writing new songs, or rearranging a cover for an acoustic performance or something like that. I have a real difficult time getting my head out of that space as well. And I think he and I kind of are kindred spirits in that. But again, I'll reiterate, I don't think he's constantly thinking about what the next giant viral thing is going to be. I think he's just always thinking about making the best radio possible. Now, you're a very creative guy. Did that come from birth, or did that come over time? Because I really look up to how many things you do and how you excel at all of those things,
Thanks, man. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if this is a boring answer or not, but as far as me personally goes, I wasn't a creator as a kid necessarily. I'm not a builder. I'm not good with my hands. I can't paint. I can't draw. I can't do any of that kind of stuff. But I've always been very, very interested in making sure my mind is as sharp as possible, and that I make a living with my mind. That's always, even from a young age, I've always wanted to do something with thinking as far as making a living and continuing to push myself with that. I've also had a pretty intense experience with the lack of understanding of social cues. So as a kid, I was not popular. I had very, very few friends, and I realized that I was always kind of behind as far as keeping up with my peers, as far as communication and being cool and understanding the context that I was living in as far as my age group goes and all that. So I kind of took it upon myself in an obsessive way to understand the social norms that were going on around me and all that. And that kind of turned into an obsession of, because I was a big music fan. Music was huge in my life. Not because of my parents never even listened to music, but I got into music, and I sort of was like, you know what? There's these artists that are completely out there that wear whatever they want, and they're just whoever they want, and people respect that. And I felt like that was kind of maybe the only way that I could go about it. So I obsessed over writing and sort of mastering the English language a little bit and knowing history and knowing all the things that I was into, and then sort of developing that into some way that I could connect with the world around me. Because I had a really difficult time communicating with people and a really difficult time feeling like I was connected to other people or to just the world around me. So as far as a creator goes, I just sort of obsessed over figuring out how to communicate my emotions and my experiences and those kind of things to feel a little bit normal, which is kind of strange, but I think I took the stage because I was so afraid of people. It was like a phobia type thing, and I needed to figure out some sort of way to communicate what I was feeling because I couldn't do it in any other way.
Dude, I had the same thing growing up because I had no siblings growing up, and I didn't have many friends, and we didn't really have any neighbors. So I feel like me and you were both kind of the same person growing up, where we did a lot of observing and learning things, and we didn't really fit in. You know what I mean? Because I feel like that's the same thing I went through, which is why we're creative, is because we spent 18 years just thinking about things, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly how it is for me. And even though I feel my best tool of communication is these, simple 3 to 4 minute songs or whatever, where lyrics in my practice mean like 4 different things. I'm trying to express an immense amount or explain an immense amount with very few words if you really break down a song. But I still feel like that's the best way that I can communicate that, and written letters and that kind of stuff. I can communicate pretty well with that. You can even ask my band members. A lot of times I can't even communicate with them very well, and it's created some interesting moments. But once somebody sort of understands me as that, or knew me from back in the old days, like my best friend, drummer Johnny, then it's sort of accepted and forgiven. But I'm a difficult person to work with, man. I admit that, and it's because I'm still the same, kind of scared, misunderstood 6-year-old kid that isn't sure why you don't understand what I'm saying when I'm saying it as bluntly as possible. You know what I'm saying? I'm a little harsh.
Who did you grow up with? Did you have any siblings?
Yeah, I had one. I'm adopted, but I was adopted into a family as the oldest and only child for a moment, and then my parents had my brother about a year and a half later. So I had a little brother. He and I grew up, Midwestern family. Both my parents were teachers. It was very, very simple, very straightforward. We were treated extremely well. Family vacations, all that kind of stuff. Very, very, very normal. But still, not all that normal because I guess I don't know. It was normal for me to be adopted, but I came to find out about 10 years old or so that I guess that wasn't the norm. But whatever. Yeah, it was a good upbringing.
Dude, I don't like the Midwest because of the winter, but now I live in Tampa Bay, and I sort of miss the morals and the values of the Midwest. The Midwest is a very good place to grow up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's a good place to raise kids. I lived in California very, very briefly when Story of the Year was out there doing some stuff. And besides missing the seasons and all that, I kind of always knew that I wanted to raise my kids somewhere in this kind of area. St. Louis is the biggest small town of America. It's a very small town sort of vibe, and most cities in the Midwest are like that. Even though they don't know that they're small towns, they consider themselves cities. It's still that kind of vibe. There's still an emphasis on some things that you're maybe not going to catch on the coast. But that being said, I have found plenty of cities and plenty of states that I'd totally be willing to raise kids in now. But yeah, I like it. I like it here, man. I'm not going to die here if it's by my choice at all. I'm not going to die here, but I do like it, and it's a place to raise kiddos.
What's it like when you have kids at a young age? Do you think it hurt your music career, or would it have been the same way so far?
Oh man, that's a heavy question. If I'm answering honestly, man, I think it hurt it in a tremendous way, and I think it made it in a pretty profound way. I don't know. I don't know what it would have been like without my kiddos, and it's not fair to my oldest daughter to say that it would have been better. It just would have been different. I would have made some sort of living doing, using my mind and being a creative in some sense. I would have played instruments probably in the same fashion and for the same reasons. I don't know where it would have taken me. It probably wouldn't have taken me to Story of the Year, but it probably would have taken me somewhere else. I would like to think, and I would like to have faith in myself enough and my tenacity and just how my soul is sort of built that I would have made whatever it was that I wanted to do for a living happen no matter what. And I'm 99.9% completely convinced of that. But it would have changed things. It would have changed things for sure. I wouldn't be in the exact same position. If I could take it back, I would not, because my oldest daughter is spectacular, as are all my children. So I don't know, but that is a heavy question, man. There's a lot of philosophical impact that goes into that thought as well,
What are some of the craziest shows you've ever done for the 3 bands that you are in?
Oh, dude. Well, I'm in like 4 bands now because I got the 90s cover band that plays around St. Louis for the fun of it. Dude, well, in recent memory, just a couple years ago, Story of the Year played South Korea again, and there was probably 55,000 there, and it was just a fly in and fly out. But man, it was just such a great experience. I love playing shows, but I love playing shows in different worlds. You know what I mean? And Asia has treated us so well, other than being deported from China. The rest of the place has treated us really well. Japan is always such a great experience. I love the history. But I mean, the shows for all bands have been pretty spectacular. I would 100% say one of my favorite shows ever was just like a little acoustic type thing to raise money to fight leukemia and cancer here in St. Louis at a Cardinals game. And the reason being is my buddy and our drummer had almost passed away from leukemia, and he was in the hospital just 8 hours before doing the show. It was kind of his return. The guy was down to 115 pounds or something and hadn't drummed in a while, and he just came out and played the show of his life in front of, maybe only 800 people or something at a Cardinals game. But it was one of the most spectacular moments that I've ever had, because he and I started playing instruments together in the 9th grade, and seeing us play, seeing him come out of the hospital fighting for his life and then play at a Cardinals game. I mean, if you're from St. Louis, you're a massive Cardinals fan, and just to have the support of this ball team that you idolize and giving a platform, literally a stage to your best friend to play his heart out in something that he loves to do, that you've been watching him do since 9th grade. That was a memory, a show that will trump any 55,000 seat show that I've played. So that was one of my biggest memories with Greek Fire. But honestly, man, I know this is going to sound weird, and this is not a very diplomatic or intelligent thing to say as a musician that's trying to sell his bands. But the greatest thing that shows and the people that have shown up to shows have given me is the ability to travel and learn the world, learn different people, learn different cultures and all that. And I'm not necessarily learning people when I'm on the stage and they're cheering for me or they're singing along. It's after the show when I'm walking around, or before the show when I'm walking around exploring a city and I find somebody that's like, hey, I love your band. I'm so happy that you're here. And I'll ask them, hey, where's the best place to go? And they'll tell me some place to go. And I get to learn about some awesome, badass church in the center of Cologne in Germany. You know what I'm saying? It's those experiences that have changed my life forever. And I'll forget the shows, the details of the shows and the minutia of the touring and the shows, but I'll never forget the experiences that I've had with people in different places.
Dude, I had the same thing last week. We went on this company cruise and we went to Grand Turk, we went to Puerto Rico and St. Thomas. And it's amazing to see other parts of the world because you get so used to being in your home market. For me, it's Tampa. For you, it's St. Louis. So that we seem to forget that there's much more on this planet Earth, you know?
Yeah. Dude, my music's not going to, maybe music will last for couple 100 years or whatever, and I hope my songs make an impact with somebody, even one person is all that matters, for a long time, whatever. But the experiences and the education that I'll get from traveling the world, that's something that I can pass down to my kids, and that's something that they can pass to their kids and that kind of stuff. Those are the things that I feel like change the planet for the better. Not that music doesn't, but music has been such a part of that, and history and understanding other people and other cultures and leaving this planet a better place than when I came in. That's really important to me. And I want to feel like I did something, and there's no better education than travel. But I know a lot of people that have traveled the world and not learned shit. Pardon me there. I know a lot of people that have traveled the world and not learned anything. You know what I'm saying? But traveling the world has been the coolest thing of all time for me.
I want to ask you this too. How did you get your foot in the door on the Riz Show? Were you working at The Point previously? Were they into what you're doing? How did you get that gig as executive producer of the Rizzuto Show?
Long story short, my bands had a relationship with the station because they had been playing Story of the Year singles since we first came out in 2003. Because it was a hometown band thing, we've done a lot of shows with the radio station and all that. And when we started touring less, I really needed to get my mind into something. I needed to kind of plant myself with something that could be a full-time job if the time came where I needed that and didn't want to tour at all. I had 2 little kids at the time, so I really needed to kind of do something in St. Louis. And I was actually talking to Tommy, our program director, about some other things and putting some shows together. And I was going to host some shows and whatever, blah, 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 being this, fairly known local musician guy. And he said, hey, have you ever thought about being on air? And I said, yeah, actually I have, but I have the worst radio voice of all time. I'm the opposite of an announcer. I got this high tenor singing voice and a really soft-spoken radio voice. So if you think that's a good idea, of course I would love to do that, but I would never come out and say, hey, I want to be on the radio because I thought I would be laughed at. But I was a big, giant morning show fan of a bunch of different shows in St. Louis when I was a little kid. I used to take a boombox and tape myself doing, DJ kind of stuff. That was this song, here's this song kind of thing. There's tapes of me as a 6-year-old doing that kind of stuff. And I was an obsessive Howard Stern fan. And I was obsessive not just because I liked the show, but I liked the operations of the show. I liked to dissect it all, whatever. So in talking to the PD, he said, well, I need somebody to literally babysit the stations on the weekends at $9 an hour, doing board op stuff and just sitting in a building to make sure stations didn't go off the air. And I just come off tour and I just played this Korea show for 55,000 people. I was like, yeah, great. Sign me up. Let me do it. So I did that. I did it for a couple years. And in 2003, when Story of the Year first started coming up and Until the Day I Die was coming up, that was the same year that Riz moved to St. Louis. So he was the low guy on the totem pole. He was the little fish at the Point. He was the grunt work guy at $9 an hour or whatever, and we were the new band that was coming up. So when the new band, the littler band, needed an interview for the station, or the station needed an interview with that band, they would send the Little Fish. So Riz was the first guy to interview Story of the Year at the Point, and he did it multiple times. As he rose in radio, Story of the Year started, doing well and making gold records and that kind of stuff. So we came up together. So anytime that Story of the Year went into the station, Riz was our pal. Riz was our buddy. So I got to know Riz more so than any of the other DJs. And then I got to know Jeff Burton, which is funny enough. And that was because Jeff Burton was a fan and we reached out a whole bunch. So, again, sorry for the long story. When Woody skipped town and they were handing over the reins to Riz, I had already sort of made a pitch to be more than just a weekend DJ and all that, and was doing some creative and showing Tommy and some other stuff. Riz called me and said, "Hey, man, I like what you're doing. Obviously, we're friends. I can trust you. I know that you're a hardworking dude. Would you want to be a part of the show? We're about to launch in a couple of weeks." And I said, "Yeah, of course." So he brought me over. It was just Riz, Tony, and myself at the time, and that was it, man. We built the show.
How nervous were you at first that you were going to be joining a top-tier morning show in St. Louis?
I wasn't nervous at all. I was excited. I was thrilled. I felt like I was in the right place at the right time, and I was doing the right work. I realized, honestly, the only thing that I was nervous about is there are 1,000 fantastic DJs out there, really talented, great people, one of which is a good friend of mine that's been trying to get a gig with The Point for years and years, and he's on in a morning show in Indy right now. And those guys that were trained guys that have beautiful announcer voices and all this kind of stuff, I knew that they were probably a little bit bummed at me, like, who's this rock star a-hole that just jumped the line and gets to be on the radio because he's a musician or whatever. So as far as like friends go, the only thing that made me nervous is I was kind of a little bit bummed for my buddies that would be like, and now he's a producer of this morning show and he gets this crack at it, So I was a little bit nervous about that. But then again, at the end of the day, I kind of really don't care what people think of me, as long as I feel like I'm doing things with integrity and delivering the goods. And that's what you just have to do. You got to have faith in yourself and just kind of go for things, because nobody's going to reward you for being cautious. Again, I'm not a radio guy. I'm not the guy that came in and had to, beg from that side and just pray and plead and hope that I got the gig. Like, I paid my dues in a completely different scene, and that scene is so unforgiving. The music scene is so unforgiving that you just go for it and you realize that things are going to be amazing one minute and they're going to be crappy the next. So a morning show was just another challenge that I was extremely excited to face and kick the hell out of. You know what I mean? It was just another awesome challenge and another thing on my childhood checklist that I wanted a crack at. So I'm just always looking forward. I don't really let the peripheral nerves get to me. I just kind of go for it. And I know that I'm going to blow it here and there, and I know that I'm going to do some good work, and I know that I'm observant enough and self-aware enough to be able to assess moment to moment what I'm not doing well and what I'm doing well, so I can continue to improve. And I think Riz knows that. I think Riz does that. And I think our entire show benefits from all four of us being that self-aware and sort of just forward-driven people. You know what I mean?
Now, for people that haven't heard the show, why should they tune in each morning?
I think it's good. I think it's good radio. Obviously, a whole lot of people think it's good radio, but I think it's good radio for a reason, because it's truthful, it's informative, it's extremely funny. You're listening to guys that do like each other, and even some good radio shows are built on the two guys hating each other or the three guys hating each other or whatever. But that's not fun for very long. And radio is all about routine. And the last thing you want in your routine is negativity. And even when we kind of go at each other or we're covering a sad story or something like that, our show is spun so positively, in my opinion, that I think I mean, there's no way to tell. You can't ask 500,000 people a day why they're tuning in and why it is that they like it, because most people probably don't even know why they like some things. But from my best guess and assessment, I think our show is spun so positively and so filled with stuff that it makes the 4 hours that we're on air go so quickly, not only for us, not only for my mother who's listening or whatever, that's just passing the time, that's looking for some good entertainment, but for the people that are working jobs that are jobs that I could never do, dig ditches, as Burton says, for a living, or police officers that are going out there stressed out beyond belief every single day. Our show makes those 4 hours just spun very positively and go by so fast in such a good way. And I think that's why people tune in, and I think that's why people keep coming back. And as long as people are listening, that's how we're going to continue to make a show.
And now, where can people find your work online and on the radio?
We do, we're on 105.7 The Point, that's KPNT in St. Louis. We have a fairly decent reach around here, but we are obviously worldwide with today's technology on iTunes. We do a podcast that's right on 1057thepoint.com/Riz. We're everywhere. It's a daily podcast. We weren't even in live today, but we played our rewinds and some of our best moments. It's a best of type of thing, and that went up on a podcast as soon as it aired. So that's all up on iTunes and the Amazon podcast and this, and everywhere you can get podcasts. The Rizzuto Show is available, which has been a really, really cool thing for our show. A lot of my fans are from the band, and those aren't necessarily St. Louis people. Those are people from the Philippines and soldiers that are over in bases in Germany. And we have fans from all over the place that catch our show on a daily basis because of the podcast and because of the internet. And it's super cool. So, yeah, I encourage you to check it out. At least give us a day or two.
Well, dude, keep up the good work, man. I love the amount of prep you guys put into the show and how positive you are. I listen every day when I'm at the gym. So keep up the good work, Moon.
Awesome, dude. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate any sort of good word about the show and all my bands, because actually I think all three of my main bands are coming out with new music in the next couple months. So pretty busy time for me.
Whenever you need me to promote anything on this show, because it's here in Tampa Bay and it won Best Podcast last year, if you need me to promote anything, I'm your guy, Moon.
Awesome, dude. Thank you. And next time I come through Tampa, I expect let's go to lunch. Let's have a drink. Let's do something.
Sounds good, bro. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, man. I'll talk to you in a bit.
All right. Peace out.
Yeah.
And that was Moon from the top-rated Rizzuto Show, which can be heard every morning, 6 to 10 a.m. Central Time on 105.7 The Point in St. Louis. Now, my show, Hoppe Hour, is a mix of me interviewing people in radio, top-notch comedians, and it's me ranting about the news. So if you're a fan of the Rizzuto Show and you want to hear a little bit of Hoppe Hour, it's not hard. It's not rocket science. All you have to do is go to the Google Play or iPhone shop, search up Hoppe Radio, Hoppe Radio, and there you can listen to me anywhere in the world. And you can chat me live when I'm doing my rants via the app. And you can also tweet at me at Ryan Hoppe Radio. Go to my website, ryanhopperadio.com. And you also can email me, ryanhopperadio@gmail.com. This has been Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, saying peace out.
Hoppe Hour. Hoppe Hour. Hoppe Hour is now over, but you can always listen 24/7 by getting the app or going to ryanhopperadio.com.